$100 million. Leave me. At the company's IPO celebration banquet, my fiancé publicly held his white moonlight, then slapped a check across my face. I didn't cry or make a scene. I picked up the check and turned to leave. He thought I'd given in. The next day he called to mock me. Without me, you're nothing. On the other end of the line his assistant screamed in terror, Mr. Joe, something's wrong. The banquet hall for Wake Biotech's IPO celebration sparkled with thousands of tiny reflections from the crystal chandelier. Each ray felt like a cold knife, cutting into my skin. The air smelled of expensive champagne bubbles and the restrained laughter of successful people. And I, Shen Nian, stood in the shadow of the corner wearing a washed-out lab coat that had no place here. Like a ghost who'd wandered in by mistake. I'd had no time to change. To ensure the IPO roadshow data was flawless, I'd been in the lab for 72 hours straight. Zhu Huaiyan had called to urge me, saying the celebration couldn't go on without me. He said, Nianian, our good days are here. Come quickly, everyone's waiting for you. So I came, and I watched him, my fiancé, founder and CEO of Wake Biotech, standing under the spotlight, the center of all attention. He wore a custom-tailored suit, his hair perfectly combed, a triumphant smile on his handsome face. He raised his glass, his voice carrying through the hall via microphone, balanced with just the right amount of excitement and modesty. Thank you to all our investors for your support, and to every member of our team for their hard work. He thanked everyone, the project manager, the marketing director, even his administrative assistant. Every name spoken clearly and firmly. Everyone except me. Me, the chief scientist who had turned the regeneration factor technology from a concept into reality, pulling countless all-nighters and pouring 10 years of my life into it. At that moment my heart felt as if it had been squeezed tight by an invisible hand, stopping altogether. He went on, his tone suddenly shifting, his gaze growing impossibly soft. But that tenderness was not for me. He reached out and pulled a slender woman in a white evening gown from the crowd to his side. Su Ruowei, his white moonlight, a famous gallery art director. Flashbulbs exploded, framing the two of them like a perfect painting. Here, the person I want to thank most is the light of my life, Miss Su Ruowei. Zhu Huaiyan's voice was deep and affectionate. She gave me the courage to keep going when I was at my lowest. She's the only reason I strive. Every achievement of Wake shines for her. The hall fell silent, then erupted into thunderous applause and cheers. I stood frozen, my blood turning cold inch by inch. The only reason he strived? Then what were the 10 years we spent eating instant noodles and doing experiments in a leaky basement? Where was he when I used my parents' retirement money to cover equipment costs to save funding? So those shared dreams he'd talked about were just my one-woman show. Amid the applause, Zhu Huaiyan put his arm around Su Ruowei and walked toward me through the crowd. The affection on his face was gone, replaced by cold, condescending superiority. Su Ruowei leaned against him, looking at me with the pity and showiness of a winner. The guests fell silent, all eyes fixed on me, waiting to watch me break down. Zhu Huaiyan stopped in front of me. He pulled a check from his inner pocket, held it between two fingers, slow and humiliating. Then he let go. The light paper fluttered down like a dead leaf, landing by my shoes stained with lab chemicals. Shen Nian, these 10 years have been hard on you. His voice wasn't loud, but it reached everyone clearly. This 100 million is your compensation. From now on, we're even. 100 million. 10 years of youth, 10 years of hard work. In his eyes, that was all I was worth. Su Ruowei smiled triumphantly, mouthing to me, you lost. The hall went dead silent. The stares turned from curiosity to open mockery. I could hear their whispers, so she was just a hired hand. I thought she was the boss's wife. 100 million is a lot. I'd be over the moon. Mr. Ju is being generous. This woman hit the jackpot. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I didn't even look at Zhu Huaiyan's disgusting face. I just bent down slowly. Everyone thought I would burst into tears or humbly pick up the check. But I extended my fingertips and lifted the thin paper with almost elegant grace. Then I held it to my lips and blew away imaginary dust. The gesture plunged the hall into another eerie silence. I lifted my head, my gaze passing calmly over Ju Huayan and Su Ruowei, finally settling on Ju Huayan's eyes. I nodded at him quietly. Okay, only one word. After a pause, I added softly, but every word clear. Wish you both a long and happy marriage. With that, I turned and walked toward the banquet hall door without looking back. My back was straight. Behind me I heard Ju Huayan's barely suppressed snicker, and the guests' relieved murmurs. In their eyes I was just a gold digger stunned by money, a sensible loser. I stepped outside the hotel. The cold night wind blew against my face, lifting my long hair. I looked down at the check in my hand, the long string of zeros glaring under the streetlights. I smiled. The smile never reached my eyes, but it was icy to the bone. Ju Huan, do you think this is the end? No. This is the start of a war. I returned to the home I'd shared with Ju Huayan, the love nest with our photos on the wall and his favorite models everywhere, and felt only revulsion. I felt not a shred of attachment. Blocking all of Ju Huayan's contact information was only the first step. I walked into the study, which also served as my mini lab. I pulled out a suitcase and began packing. I owned very few personal clothes. Over the decade, almost all my money had gone into research. I'd worn nothing but simple t-shirts and jeans for years. What truly mattered were my experimental materials. Stacks of notebooks filled with dense formulas and experimental designs. 3 encrypted external hard drives containing all the core code and raw data for the regeneration factor. From Generation 1 to Generation 4. These were the real lifeblood of Huwake Biotech. I carefully placed them in a fireproof and shockproof safe. Once packed, I looked around. On the wall hung all Ju Huayan's young entrepreneur trophies. In the living room stood limited edition sports car models he'd bought for millions. In the closet were hundreds of designer suits. None of them were bought by me. Or rather, they were all bought with money from the technology I developed. I sneered, dragged my suitcase and safe out the door, and closed it behind me, the door I'd lived behind for 8 years. I didn't look back. Midnight, exactly 12 o'clock. I sat in a pre-booked hotel suite and called my lawyer, Attorney Wang. Attorney Wang initiated. Attorney Wang's voice was steady on the line. Miss Shen, are you sure? Once initiated, this agreement takes effect immediately with no room for reversal. I'm sure. My voice was calm. Very well. I will submit the documents to Huwake Biotech's legal department and the relevant patent offices immediately. I hung up and looked at the bright city lights outside the window. Ju Huayan, you're probably still celebrating your victory with your white moonlight. Enjoy your last few hours of wealth and glory. The next morning, harsh sunlight woke me. I'd slept the soundest sleep I'd had in 10 years. My phone buzzed violently on the nightstand, an unknown number. I answered and said nothing. On the other end came Ju Huayan's hungover, hoarse voice, dripping with smug mockery. Shen Nian, don't regret it. I know you're hiding somewhere crying right now. I'm telling you, without me, you're nothing. You can't even pay next month's rent. Be smart and don't come crawling back. 100 million is enough for a woman like you to live on for the rest of your life. I listened quietly, letting him vent his ridiculous sense of superiority. When he finished, I replied slowly. Is that so? My voice was perfectly calm. Then, let's wait and see. I was about to hang up when a panicked scream suddenly burst from the other end. His assistant, Xiao Chun. Mr. Ju, something's wrong. Mr. Ju. Ju Huayan snapped impatiently. What are you yelling about? Can't you see I'm on the phone? Mr. Ju, our servers. The core code library on our servers has been wiped. We're locked out of highest level access. I heard Ju Huayan's breathing turn heavy instantly. What? Hacked? Tell the tech department to recover it immediately. Useless fools. The assistant was almost in tears, her voice shaking. It wasn't a hack, Mr. Ju. It's an emergency notice just sent by legal. All the company's core technology patents, including the entire regeneration factor series. Starting at midnight tonight, they've all been legally transferred to. She seemed too scared to say the name, her voice catching in her throat. Ju Huan roared into the phone. Transferred to who? Speak. Miss Shen Nian. And our core regeneration factor technology, The licensing agreement we signed with Ms. Shen Nyan has also been unilaterally terminated due to certain clauses. Mr. Ju, we're just an empty shell now. Crash, a loud bang. I clearly heard the sound of Ju Yan's phone slamming into the ground, shattering into pieces. Immediately after came Su Wei's scream, and a chaotic string of crashing noises. I hung up the phone expressionlessly. I walked to the huge floor-to-ceiling window and drew back the curtains. A brand new sun was rising over the horizon, shining brilliantly. I took a deep breath. The air smelled fresh after rain. Ju Yan, a new war has begun. My phone started ringing non-stop. His office landline, his other private numbers. One by one, slowly and calmly, I blocked them all. Then I turned it off. Peace and quiet at last. 03 Ju Yan found me at 3 in the afternoon. I was sitting in the executive lounge on the top floor of the hotel, enjoying afternoon tea and discussing my future career plans with the headhunter. He looked like an enraged beast, bloodshot eyes, messy hair. His suit jacket crumpled over his arm, nothing like the high-spirited man from yesterday. He must have tracked me down by checking my credit card records. Shen Yan. He roared my name, rushed over and grabbed my wrist. His grip was so strong he nearly crushed my bones. The guests nearby were startled and turned to stare. Why did you do this, you vicious woman? Wasn't I good to you? Isn't 100 million enough? His spit almost sprayed onto my face. I frowned in disgust and jerked away. Maybe he was exhausted from staying up all night. Or maybe he never expected me to fight back. I actually broke free of his hold. 5 clear red marks instantly appeared on my wrist. I lifted my eyes, my gaze colder and sharper than his. 100 million? I scoffed, my voice quiet but piercing. Ju Yan, are you asking if 100 million is enough to buy out 10 years of my youth? Or enough to buy the life of your Huake biotech? He was choked speechless by my words, frozen in place. I slowly pulled a stack of documents from my bag, copies of the very agreement. The papers scattered at his feet, just like the check he'd thrown at me yesterday. Open your eyes and look clearly. I dropped all pretense of gentleness and raised my voice sharply. The final ownership agreement for technical patents we signed in black and white at the start of the business. It states clearly, all technologies developed under my leadership for the company are ultimately owned by me. Shen Nian, personally. You were in charge of operations. I was in charge of technology. Before you fully fulfilled the 40% company equity promised to me, I only granted exclusive licensing of the technology to Huake Biotech. You're the one who refused to honor my equity before the IPO, just to make room for your precious white moonlight Su Wei, so she could marry you, this self-made business tycoon in style. You were the one who broke our agreement first. Ju Yan's face turned deathly pale in an instant. He stared fixedly at the documents on the floor, disbelief flooding his eyes. He'd probably never taken this document seriously, signed back then only to reassure me and keep me focused on research. In his eyes I was just his accessory. My talent, my technology, they naturally belonged to him. I watched his devastated look and it still wasn't enough. I slowly raised my hand and took off the black-rimmed glasses I'd worn for 10 years. The glasses had been both a tool for my lab work and a disguise to hide my edge. I set them casually on the table, met his shocked gaze and smiled icily. Do you really think you, who can only make PPTs and talk big on stage, who can't even recite the basic molecular formula of the regeneration factor, could have created all this out of thin air? My voice was soft, but every word cut to the core. Ju Yan, you were never a business genius. You were nothing but a puppet I put on stage. The word puppet landed like a sledgehammer, smashing straight into Ju Yan's most fragile, proud vanity. He staggered back 2 steps, his face turning from white to green, his body swaying unsteadily. He looked at me and for the first time fear appeared in his eyes. He might finally have realized that the woman in front of him was no longer the Shen Nian he could manipulate and dismiss with money. He began to beg, his voice cracking. Nyan, it's a misunderstanding. All of this is a misunderstanding. He tried to grab my hand again but I pulled away in disgust. I just wanted to surprise you after the IPO. The 40% equity was already ready, and that 100 million was pocket money for you. Even he didn't believe his own lies. Give the technology back to me, okay? Let's start over. I'll break up with Su Wei right now. I'll give you more money, no half the company, no 60%. Nyan, please? He rambled incoherently, like a gambler who'd lost every last chip. I cut him off coldly. It's too late. My voice was perfectly calm. The moment you threw that check at my feet in front of everyone at the celebration banquet, Huic Biotech was already dead to me. And you, Zhu Huaiyan, I looked at his bloodless face, speaking slowly and clearly, don't even qualify to be buried with it. Huic Biotech's core tech patents change ownership overnight. Company reduced to empty shell. New unicorn suspected of fraudulent IPO. Founder Zhu Huaiyan mired in crisis. The day after my decisive strike, headlines like these flooded every financial section. Huic Biotech stock opened at a limit down lock. Countless investors wailed online, calling Zhu Huaiyan a fraud. The company's switchboard and PR department phones were ringing off the hook. Zhu Huaiyan completely lost his mind. His first move was to hire the top law firm in the industry, threatening to sue me for commercial encroachment and theft of trade secrets. However, when my lawyer attorney Wang slammed the original copy of the final ownership agreement for technical patents, clearly worded, airtight, and signed personally by Zhu Huaiyan in front of them, the fancy legal team fell completely silent. The agreement stated plainly that all patents belonged to me personally, with an additional clause: if Zhu Huaiyan failed to fulfill his equity promise before the IPO, or committed any breach of contract or betrayal, I reserved the right to unilaterally and unconditionally terminate all technology licensing without legal liability. The more readily he'd signed it back then to reassure me, the more desperate he was now. With the legal route blocked, Zhu Huaiyan turned to his favorite tactic: public opinion warfare. He spent a fortune hiring trolls and marketing accounts to smear me wildly online. Scorned lover steals company assets to revenge ex-boyfriend. Exposed the vicious woman behind Huic Biotech, stopping at nothing to climb up. Overnight I was painted as a mad woman who destroyed everything because she couldn't have love. Vulgar photos were photoshopped and spread, and rumors of my messy private life were fabricated. I made no public response to these slanders. Arguing with a madman would only drag me down to his level. Instead, through attorney Wang, I quietly submitted 2 pieces of evidence to the China Securities Regulatory Commission and major financial media. Only 2, but enough. First, Huic Biotech's IPO prospectus contained false statements claiming the company held full independent intellectual property rights to core technologies. Second, as the sole holder of the core technical patents, I had never transferred ownership to the company, meaning Zhu Huaiyan was suspected of fraudulent IPO. This time, it struck a hornet's nest. This was no longer a simple commercial dispute, it had escalated to criminal offenses. The CSRC immediately announced a formal investigation into Huic Biotech. The company's stock began a never-ending spiral of limit downs. Shareholders who'd once fawned over Zhu Huaiyan now circled him like sharks smelling blood. The board held an emergency meeting, the atmosphere so heavy it could drip water. Zhu Huaiyan, you owe us an explanation. Why is the company's core technology in the hands of an outsider? Fraudulent IPO, do you know what this means? We'll all go down with you. Get those patents back now, or you're fired. Zhu Huaiyan was hounded by the board's shareholders, on the verge of collapse. He came to see me again. This time he didn't dare barge into the hotel. Instead, he waited downstairs all night like a beggar. When I went out the next morning, I saw him unshaven, eyes bloodshot like a stray dog. Standing next to him were 2 more people, my parents. My heart sank when I saw them. My mother's eyes reddened the moment she saw me. She rushed over and grabbed my hand. Nayani, and how could you be so foolish? Huaiyan explained everything to us. It's all a misunderstanding. Give the things back and stop this nonsense. My father also frowned sternly. Shen Nayan, how did we raise you? Be a decent person. Huaiyan treated you well. How could you ruin someone's career like this? Zhu Huaiyan stood to the side, immediately putting on a wronged yet affectionate look. Uncle, auntie, it's all my fault. I didn't handle things well and made Nayanian upset. Nayanian, listen to me. There's really nothing between Su Ruoi and me. It was all just for company entertainment. Watching them sing in unison, I felt only absurdity and cold disappointment. My own parents never asked what wrongs I'd suffered. Never asked how I'd been these 10 years. Their first reaction was to blame me and tell me to think of the bigger picture. To them, their daughter's dignity and happiness meant far less than an accomplished son-in-law. I didn't argue with them. I just pulled out my phone and pressed play. Zhu Huaiyan's voice came through clearly, the call he'd made to me that morning. Without me, you're nothing. You can't even pay next month's rent. 100 million is enough for a woman like you to live on for the rest of your life. His arrogant, mocking tone echoed through the quiet hotel lobby, sharp and grating. My parents' faces froze at once. Their mouths hung open, unable to say a word. Zhu Huaiyan's face turned ashen in an instant. He never could have imagined I'd recorded the call. I turned off the recording and looked at him coldly. Zhu Huaiyan, do you want me to play the video of you throwing that 100 million check at my feet at the banquet in front of Uncle and Auntie too? He trembled all over, his lips shaking, unable to speak. I turned to my parents, my voice completely empty of emotion. Dad, Mom, this is the good son-in-law who treated me well in your eyes. From today on, I never want to hear his name again. With that, I didn't look at any of them again. I turned and got into the waiting taxi. As the car pulled away, I saw in the rearview mirror that Zhu Huaiyan had collapsed to his knees, while my parents stood there at a loss. I took out my phone and sent Zhu Huaiyan a message. The game has only just begun. Enjoy the bitter fruit you planted with your own hands. 05 Just as Zhu Huaiyan was being backed into a corner by me, running into dead ends everywhere, someone unexpected found me. Lu Zoyan, founder of Farstar Capital, one of the top investors in the country. Also Zhu Huaiyan's biggest business rival. Rumors said he had an eye for opportunity and ruthless tactics, a true business tycoon. He didn't spam me with calls like Zhu Huaiyan. Instead, through attorney Wang, he politely sent a meeting invitation. The location was a highly private Chinese-style club. He was already there when I arrived. He wore a well-tailored dark gray suit, no tie, his demeanor steady and sharp. He stood up when he saw me and held out his hand. Dr. Shen, nice to meet you, I'm Lu Zioan. His palm was warm and firm. There was no contempt in his eyes, only equal scrutiny and appreciation. Mr. Lu, hello. We sat down, and a tea master poured us top-grade Da Hong Pao. He got straight to the point, no wasted words. Dr. Shen, I've been watching you for a long time. I was slightly surprised. He smiled and continued. I've been paying attention since Huake Biotech released its first-generation regeneration factor. I thought it was strange even then, the forward-thinking and rigor in that technology had nothing to do with Zhu Huaiyan's flashy, grandstanding style. Only when the news broke recently did I realize the truth. Huake Biotech's real soul is you. His words stirred something in me. For 10 years, everyone only saw Zhu Huaiyan in the spotlight. Only this man had seen through the surface to the core. He pushed a document toward me. This is a cooperation plan I've prepared for you. You can take a look first. I opened it, and my pupils narrowed slightly. Farstar Capital would invest 2 billion RMB to launch a brand new biotechnology company. I would contribute all core technology as shares, holding 51% equity. I would serve as the new company's chief scientist and co-CEO, with veto power, especially over all R&D related decisions. The terms in the contract were shockingly generous. More importantly, they represented absolute respect and trust in me. Zhu Huaiyan had refused to honor even 40% equity after 10 years. Yet Lu Zioan, a stranger meeting me for the first time, was willing to hand over absolute controlling stake right away. I closed the document and looked up at him. Why me? Lu Zioan picked up his teacup, took a light sip, and looked at me intently. His words struck right at my heart. I hesitated no longer. I agree. We signed the cooperation agreement on the spot, witnessed by our lawyers. I named the new company Phoenix Biotech, meaning rebirth from the ashes. Lu Zioan's execution was astonishing. Right after the signing, he arranged a press conference. It was held the same afternoon Huake Biotech hit its 7th consecutive limit down. The press conference was packed with media, flashlights blazing like daylight. For the first time, I stepped onto the stage officially as Shen Nian, chief scientist and co-CEO of Phoenix Biotech. I took off my lab coat and black-rimmed glasses, changing into a sharp white tailored suit prepared by Lu Zioan's team, with a polished, commanding look. The moment I walked on stage, I saw undisguised surprise and confusion in the reporters' eyes. They could hardly connect this cold, confident woman with the crazy, jealous woman smeared in the news just days earlier. I stood behind the podium, no extra words, and dropped a bombshell. Phoenix Biotech will officially launch the upgraded Regeneration Factor 2.0 technology globally within 3 months. This technology will achieve cell repair and regeneration efficiency more than 5 times higher than all similar products on the market, including Wake Biotech's Regeneration Factor 1.0. At the same time, production costs will be reduced by 70%. The entire room erupted in an uproar. Reporters went wild, firing questions like a tidal wave. 5 times the performance, 70% lower cost. This news was nothing less than a death sentence for Wake Biotech. I looked at the flashing lights below, and knew that from this moment, the offensive and defensive positions had completely reversed. Zhu Huaiyan, your good days are over. 06 The press conference had an immediate effect. The next day, Wake Biotech's stock opened and hit another limit down as expected. The difference was that this time, no one held any illusions about it anymore. Zhu Huaiyan was driven completely into a corner. He thought I had only taken those few patent documents. Naively, he believed that with his R&D team still there, he could make them replicate my technology and at least barely keep the company running. So he gathered all R&D employees, offered triple salaries, and demanded they reproduce the regeneration factor technology as quickly as possible. I heard this from Li Hao, my senior brother and head of R&D at Wake Biotech, who told me secretly. I was in my new office at Phoenix Biotech, discussing lab renovation plans with Lu Zuan, when his call came. Li Hao's voice on the line was full of anger and helplessness. Junior Sister Shen, that idiot Zhu Huaiyan has lost his mind. Does he think research is like buying vegetables at a market? Just copy it? Without your raw data and algorithm models, we can't even get the basic culture-medium ratio right. He yells at the department every day, calling us useless trash collecting paychecks. The guys are being driven crazy. I listened quietly. An amateur leading professionals. That was the fatal flaw of speculators like Zhu Huaiyan. He could never understand how many years of accumulation and countless trials lay behind a top-tier technology. He only saw the results and never respected the process. I spoke only one sentence into the phone. Senior brother, I have brand new projects, a brand new lab, and a brand new future here. Do you want to do something truly great together? The line went silent for a full 30 seconds. Then Li Hao's voice came again, filled with suppressed excitement and resolve. Yes. Junior sister, tell us what to do. Simple, I said. Tomorrow morning at 9, bring all the brothers you trust downstairs at Phoenix Biotech. I'll be waiting for you. The next day, the most dramatic scene in Wake Biotech's history unfolded at its headquarters. At exactly 9 o'clock in the morning, led by R&D Director Li Hao, the entire core R&D team, 37 people in total, submitted their resignations to HR en masse. They packed their personal belongings and walked out of the building they'd worked in for years without a single glance back. The HR manager was stunned. He rushed to the top floor president's office without even knocking. Mr. Zhu, something's wrong. The R&D department, everyone quit. According to witnesses, Zhu Huaiyan froze for a full minute when he heard the news. Then he flew into a rage, smashing everything in his office to pieces. Precious antique vases, his prized sports car models, the huge floor-to-ceiling windows. The entire president's office was left in ruins. He finally understood. I hadn't just taken the technology patents. I had taken Wake Biotech's roots, its soul, its people. Without the technology, and now without all core R&D talent, Wake Biotech couldn't even maintain updates for its existing products. It had become a completely worthless empty shell. Meanwhile, in front of Phoenix Biotech's brand new building, I looked at Li Hao, and the more than 30 familiar faces behind him, their eyes shining with trust and anticipation. Dr. Shen, they shouted excitedly when they saw me. We can finally work properly with you leading the way. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at them. This was my real team. I nodded firmly. Welcome home. Seeing Zhu Huaiyan's empire crumble and her rich wife dreams vanish, Su Ruowei finally lost her patience. She launched a series of crazy, foolish counterattacks. First, she posted a long, tearful essay on her social media. In it, she painted herself as an innocent, kind victim dragged down by love. She claimed she and Zhu Huaiyan were truly in love, only to suffer vicious revenge from me, the scheming ex. She blamed all of Zhu Huaiyan's failures on my malice and jealousy. The post sounded sincere, paired with photos of her weeping prettily, fooling many netizens into feeling sorry for her. The hashtag #FeelSorryForRu was pushed to trending topics by her trolls. She even photoshopped pictures of me entering hotels with different men intimately, spreading rumors about my messy private life to attack my character. I couldn't even be bothered to respond to this clownish performance. Lu Ziyuan's PR team was far from incompetent. Without consulting me, they struck back quickly and effectively. They didn't argue with trolls or deny the clumsy fakes. Instead, they contacted one of China's most authoritative art media outlets and dropped hard evidence. The proof showed that First Snow, the painting that had made her famous in college and won her the gold medal at the National Art Exhibition, was actually stolen from a deceased classmate. As soon as the scandal broke, public opinion reversed completely. How credible could the words of an art director who rose to fame by plagiarism be? Su Rui's talented girl image shattered to pieces. She went from a pitied white moonlight to a reviled art thief overnight. Her gallery immediately issued a statement firing her to distance themselves. The wealthy heirs and celebrities who'd fawned over her now avoided her like the plague. Su Ruiwei was completely ruined. Cornered, she resorted to her most desperate act, industrial espionage. She must have figured that if I could take down Zhu Huaiyan with technology, she could steal my new tech the same way and turn the tables. She bribed a newly hired cleaner at my company to sneak into my office late at night and copy data from my computer. None of this was a surprise to Lu Ziyuan and me. Phoenix Biotech's security system was designed by a top global team. Not even a fly could enter without us knowing. I set a trap. On my office computer, I deliberately placed encrypted fake files. The name was tempting: Regeneration Factor 2.02 Core Algorithm, Final Version. In reality, it was just meaningless random code, plus a tracking program that triggered an alarm the second it was copied. On the night of their planned exchange, the bribed cleaner snuck into my office and inserted a USB drive into my computer. Little did he know, every move was being live-streamed via pinhole cameras to Lu Ziyuan, me, and the police. Just as he handed the USB to Su Ruiwei in the underground parking lot in exchange for cash, I arrived with the police and a crowd of reporters who'd rushed to the scene. Flashbulbs exploded, illuminating Su Ruiwei's terrified, twisted, desperate face. She was caught red-handed. The charge of industrial espionage would land her in prison for years. Screaming like a madwoman, she called Zhu Huaiyan's name as police handcuffed her. "Huaiyan, save me! You made me do this! Help me!" The next day, to save himself, Zhu Huaiyan immediately issued a cold statement through his now-defunct company. It claimed all of Ms. Su Ruiwei's actions were personal and had no connection to the company or Mr. Zhu Huaiyan himself. Mr. Zhu said he knew nothing and strongly condemned her behavior. When disaster strikes, lovers fly apart. How ironic. This was the true love Su Ruiwei had gambled everything for. I watched the news footage of her being dragged into a police car, feeling not pleasure, only indifference. Foolish people always pay for their foolishness. Oh wait, Biotech's delisting and liquidation happened even faster than expected. Due to fraudulent IPO, the company faced not only massive fines from the CSRC, but also huge compensation to investors. All of Zhu Huaiyan's assets, houses, luxury cars were frozen and auctioned by the court. Even then, he was still deeply insolvent. He went from a billionaire rising star to a penniless debtor overnight. He began drinking heavily, hiding in a cheap rental apartment, too ashamed to show his face. Witnesses said he stared endlessly at old photos of us, muttering my name over and over, filled with regret. Finally, on a stormy, thundering night, he broke down. Soaking wet, like a drowned ghost, he appeared downstairs at my new apartment. He knelt in the cold rain, looked up, and screamed my name again and again. Nayanian, Shen. I was wrong. I really was wrong. Come back to me, please. I can't live without you. I don't want the company, I don't want the money, I don't want anything. I just want you. His cries were as shrill and tragic as a cuckoo bleeding its heart. I stood at the 23rd floor-to-ceiling window, wearing soft silk loungewear, holding a cup of warm milk, coldly watching the tiny, pitiful figure below. Lu Zuan walked up behind me and gently draped a warm cashmere cardigan over my shoulders. He asked nothing, just stood quietly beside me, giving me silent, solid support. Downstairs, Zhu Huaiyan's shouts grew louder, drawing the community security guards. He struggled like a madman, refusing to leave, still yelling about the hard days we'd shared. Nianian, don't you remember? Eating instant noodles together, splitting one steamed bun? Don't you remember you said you'd build a tech empire with me? Our dream, did you forget it all? I watched his pathetic performance with a blank face, finding it ridiculous. Dream? His dream was to step on my shoulders to reach his white moonlight. I took out my phone. I didn't answer his calls or go down to see him. I just sent him one final message. Zhu Huaiyan, stop acting. You never missed me as a person. You missed the tool that gave selflessly, let you climb to success on her back, and fed all your vanity. Too bad, that tool has upgraded itself, and permanently blocked you, a defective user. After sending the message, I drew the curtains, cutting off all the noise outside. I turned to Lu Zuan beside me, let security handle it. I never want to see him again. Lu Zuan nodded and made a call. As for me, I wouldn't even bother to scatter his ashes. 3 months later, Phoenix Biotech's global launch of regeneration. Factor 2.0 was held grandly at the China National Convention Center. The venue was packed. Top tech media, capital giants, and medical institution representatives from around the world gathered. The day before the conference, I made a decision. I told my assistant to send an invitation to Zhu Huaiyan. Front row, center seat, the most prestigious VIP spot. Lu Zuan was confused. Why see him at all? I smiled. I want him to see with his own eyes what he threw away. I want him to personally crown my glory. On the day of the conference, Zhu Huaiyan actually came. He wore an ill-fitting cheap suit, his hair streaked with gray, eyes cloudy, completely out of place among the elegantly dressed elites. He looked like a down-and-out actor who'd wandered onto the wrong set, sitting restlessly, lost. When the conference began, I stepped onto the stage confidently in a custom red gown, all the spotlights on me. I saw Zhu Huaiyan. He looked up at me blankly. In his eyes were shock, regret, and unspeakable pain. I ignored him. In the most professional, clear language, I presented the epic-making significance of regeneration factor 2.0 to the world. When the big screen showed the clinical trial data, 10 times the repair efficiency of the previous generation, no side effects, and only 1/10 the cost, the hall erupted in sustained applause. Everyone knew a new era had arrived. Wake Biotech and its pitiful 1.0 technology had been permanently buried in the trash heap of history. At the end of the conference, after all procedures were finished, I didn't step down immediately. I walked back to the center of the stage, the spotlights following me again. I picked up the microphone and smiled. At this glorious moment for Phoenix Biotech, I want to especially thank one person. The room fell silent, everyone watching curiously. All media cameras focused on me. The person I want to thank is the former CEO of Wake Biotech, Mr. Zhu Huaiyan. The name sent the entire hall into an uproar. Everyone's eyes shot toward Zhu Huaiyan in the front row like searchlights. He looked up blankly, like a poorly performing student called out in public, completely at a loss. I looked at him, my smile growing brighter. I want to thank him for the generous $100 million breakup fee he gave me at Wake Biotech's IPO celebration banquet. That exact money became Phoenix Biotech's first angel investment. Without that crucial startup capital, Phoenix might not have been born so quickly. And Regeneration Factor 2.0 might not have reached you all so soon. So Mr. Zhu, I raised the microphone toward him from a distance. As if toasting. Thank you for making this possible. The hall fell silent for a second, then erupted into thunderous laughter and applause. Everyone understood the biting irony in this thank you. It was the most magnificent yet cruelest public execution. I had returned his humiliation 100-fold, 1,000-fold, under the mocking, disdainful, and pitying stares of the entire crowd. Zhu Huaiyan's face turned deep purple. He coughed violently, his body swaying. He pointed at me, his lips trembling, but could not utter a single word. In the end, unable to bear the extreme shame and shock, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell straight backward. Chaos broke out at the scene. I stood high on the stage, watching coldly as medical staff carried him away on a stretcher. My heart was calm. My revenge was complete. 10 after the press conference, Zhu Huaiyan was rushed to the hospital. But waiting for him was not gentle care, but a cold court summons. Convicted on multiple charges: fraudulent IPO, falsifying financial reports, maliciously siphoning company assets, he was sentenced to 5 years in prison, plus an enormous fine beyond his ability to pay. His life ended in utter disgrace. Su Ruiwei, for industrial espionage and her earlier plagiarism, was sentenced to 3 years. The once glamorous golden couple of the social scene finally reunited in prison. They vanished completely from high society, becoming nothing but a joke and gossip topic. Phoenix Biotech, meanwhile, saw its valuation soar after the conference, and successfully listed on the Nasdaq. On the day of the IPO bell ringing, I wore the same red gown from the press conference, stood on the NYSE trading floor, and personally rang the bells symbolizing wealth and glory. Lu Zhuan stood beside me, his eyes filled with undisguised admiration and pride. Amid countless flashbulbs and cheers, we smiled at each other. My new office occupied the top floor of the city's most premium skyscraper. With a 360-degree panoramic view, I had that 100 million check framed in expensive walnut wood and hung it directly across from my desk. Next to it hung a photo of Lu Zhuan, our team, and me at the IPO bell ceremony. Everyone who visited my office saw this unusual decoration. It reminded me always, never hide your light for anyone or anything unworthy. It also reminded me that all humiliation and harm, if you grow strong enough, will eventually become the brightest metals on your path to success. 3 years later, Phoenix Biotech had become an undisputed giant in global biotechnology. As its founder, I appeared on the cover of Time magazine, hailed as the woman shaping the future of life science. Lu Zhuan, by my side, had evolved from a business partner to my life partner. He admired every part of me, my ambition, my edge, and my occasional vulnerability. Our relationship was built on true equality, respect, and spiritual resonance. One day I gave a televised interview to China's top financial channel. The studio was brightly lit. The intelligent, elegant host asked a question on everyone's mind. Dr. Shen, we all know your legendary entrepreneurial story. Many are curious. When you faced betrayal and hurt, how did you move forward? Do you still hate that person? I smiled calmly into the camera. First, it was not betrayal. It was a precise filtering. It helped me eliminate the wrong, unworthy people from my life in a harsh but efficient way, allowing me to walk the right path faster and without burden. As for hate, I shook my head, my smile showing genuine relief. My time and energy are precious. I use them to create value and change the world, not waste them on meaningless emotional baggage. Why would I remember a junk file already deleted from my system? At that very moment, in a greasy, noisy corner of the city, a 24-hour cheap fast food restaurant, a hunched man in a dirty uniform struggled to carry a tray full of dishes between tables. It was Zhu Huaiyan, released early from prison for good behavior. But when he stepped outside, he found the world no longer had a place for him. He could not find any decent work, only the most tiring, filthy jobs for a meager wage. An old TV hung on the restaurant wall, playing my interview. Zhu Huaiyan froze mid-step, tray in hand. He stared blankly at the screen, at the radiant, confident woman. So familiar, yet so alien. He had aged drastically. His once handsome face was lined, his eyes cloudy, filled with regret, resentment, and deep despair. The woman on screen was confident, beautiful, powerful. The world around her was a height he could never reach, never even imagine. What had he pushed away? A woman, or an entire era? Crash! The tray slipped from his hands and crashed to the floor. Soup, leftover food, and oil spilled everywhere. Zhu Huaiyan, are you dead or alive? Blind, clean this up now. You want your salary this month. The restaurant owner's sharp scolding cut through the air. But Zhu Huaiyan did not react. He just stared, transfixed, at the screen. Two cloudy tears rolled silently down his wrinkled face. Back in my world after the interview, I walked forward calmly with Lu Zuan, not pausing. We passed right by the dark alley where he lingered. Sunlight fell on me again, warm and soft. To the man hiding in the shadows, I felt nothing. No love, no hate, not even pity. He was truly just a random extra in the story of my brilliant life. His life, his suffering, his regret. Nothing more than a trivial footnote on the first page of my extraordinary story. Just that.